Hey guys, welcome back to another video where I talk about albums that I've liked recently. Um, yeah, we got another 10 albums here that I think are pretty solid. Um, I will say there are probably like two in here that I wouldn't say you need to listen to, but I do want to talk about them, and I did like both of them. So yeah, I guess without further ado, I'll get started. And then first up is No Fear of Time by Black Star and Madlib. And if you're wondering why you have not heard this album, it's because it's not on streaming services, and for a long time it was only available through, I think, the podcast app that they have. I'm not really sure the specifics. I got this on vinyl sometime last year, and I only got around to listening to it somewhat recently. It's just on the backlog for literally forever. But yeah, it's a pretty solid project. I think lyrically, both Yasin Bey, which is Mos Def, and Talib Kweli are both still pretty good. And the Madlib beats are pretty good as well. But I still felt like there was something missing from this project. Um, maybe maybe it's just like the wait for this album having been their second album to collab album together, and the first one was released like way back in the day. Um, I know if anyone who was listening to the original Black Star album when it first came out, I know they're probably feeling old if I hearing me say that, but um, I kind of expected a bit more out of the project, like especially after how solid that first one was. And don't get me wrong, this one is also pretty good too, but uh, I couldn't help but feel a little like let down. Um, Maybe I was expecting a bit too much. Maybe expectations just got so high after such a long wait. But I still think I think it's a good project. I think I'd recommend it. And I think maybe I'll like it more and re-listen. The Black Thought feature was pretty great. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of most of the things I have to really say about this album. I'd say if you can give it a listen, maybe it's worth it just for the novelty or just to pick it up if you see it around on a physical, because the physical release was relatively recently, and that's when I got the vinyl. But yeah, like I'd say maybe pick it up on. I think it's on Bandcamp if you want to have it digital. Because when I bought it, it also came with the MP3 files as well. So I have those on my phone to listen to whenever. But yeah, not on streaming. So if you ever get an opportunity to listen to this, I'd say give it a shot at least for the novelty. And then and Justice for All by Metallica. I think this album's really solid, especially for it being their first album without Cliff Burton. But I think my main gripe with it is really it's just the same as what everyone else has to say about the album. The bass is just drowned out in the mix. I've heard some of the songs on the album where Jason Newsted's bass is made much more audible. In my opinion, I think it sounds way better in a lot of the different songs, or at least on par, right? I think the guitar tones on this album are pretty solid, and at least on par with Master of Puppets. But like I said in my last video, I prefer the Ride the Lightning guitar tones to both of them. And another thing that I noticed with this album, and also with the Black album, which I might talk about in my next video, um, if you know, depending on whenever that is, we'll see um, if I'll be able to get it out for next week. Um, is that Kirk Hammett's solos just really love using the wah pedal, and I think it's probably like on maybe like two or three of the songs on this album at least. And the Black Album is where I really noticed this, but also it's kind of a smaller issue on this album as well too. But that's only really a small critique. It just kind of made the solos just feel a little samey on some of the tracks. But yeah, uh, as for the positives, I think like what I said in my last video, James Hetfield's vocals from a kind of objective point of view. So like what notes he can hold, his confidence in his voice, stuff like that only just seem to get better with each album. And I think that's here true here too. I will say, after And Justice for All, I think this is probably like my favorite iteration of his vocals. I'll talk about my critiques with his vocals on the Black album, but I'm sure you could probably guess what those are. It's probably the same as everyone else's critiques on that album, but I do like his vocals on that album as well. Um, but I think this is probably my favorite James Hetfield like vocal performance, I guess. Um, and I think also some of the rhythm guitar riffs on this album are great. Some, probably some of my favorite Metallica like riffs are on here too. You got Blackened, you got One, you got Dyer's Eve, Harvester's Sorrow. All of those have really great riffs from the rhythm guitar, and yeah, I think it's a solid album. Paranoid by Black Sabbath. This one is a classic for sure. You got songs like War Pigs, Paranoid, and Iron Man that are all on here. And honestly, if you somehow never heard these songs before, you need to check this album out, even if it's just for those. Ozzy Osbourne's vocals are just so great, and so is Tony Iommi's like guitar playing, which was so different for its time. It literally spawned the genre of metal, or at least can be partially attributed to it. So, just yeah, like really, like at this point, like it's not anything too crazy, but for the time that it came out, it was pretty forward thinking, and I think the music still holds up. So go check it out. How do you say it? Enema by Tool. Great tracks on here. I can really only say the same stuff on here that I did for Lateralis. The Maynard vocals are awesome. Bass being heavily audible, and seeming to be what the tracks are built around is awesome. Danny Carey is an amazing drummer, etc., etc., etc. Right. I think partially what makes me like prog metal and what little bit of prog rock that I've listened to is that songs kind of feel like little musical journeys in and of themselves. Choruses kind of feel like recurring characters, and by the end of the song, it often feels and sounds different than how it did when it began. It can be a little psychedelic and trippy, and I think Tool is excellent at that sort of thing. So if that sounds a little appealing to you, go check it out. Let the Sun Talk by Mavi. God, bro, Mavi is just so good. Incredible wordplay, great beats. Topically, he kind of just tells you what's on his mind and just tells it to you just how it is, like with no like I guess there is a little metaphor, but no like he's not trying to like obscure anything really. Um, I just really love the specific words he says to say things. If other rappers wanted to say the same things that Mavi sang on his songs, they'd have to write it completely differently. His word choice is just his the words he chooses to make his rhymes are just completely different from what anyone else would do, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. He's definitely one of my favorite abstract hip hop artists. I would say I do probably still have Earl over him, but he's definitely up there for sure. Days Before Dream Boy by Lil Nas X. If you're into pop rap, don't skip over this one because I haven't really heard a lot of buzz for it. And it seems to be just an EP or a compilation of the singles he was dropping earlier this year in preparation for an album he's dropping. But I haven't heard much about it recently. Like, I haven't heard a lot uh, of news around the album. I know he was promoting it a while ago, but I don't think it's released. Or I'm pretty sure it hasn't. Anyway, but bouncy pop rap beeps, more good hooks than not. Some solid rapping performances, although there's a few questionable bars, and I'm not gonna spoil them any in this video. Uh, Presumably, these tracks won't be on the album, which makes me kind of excited to hear what he's got going on in the album. Because if these weren't good enough to make the actual album, then I'm really like curious as to what is good enough for it. We Live in a Society by JPEG Mafia and Flume. All right, guys. I'll admit I don't think you need to listen to this album, but I did like it, and I sort of want to explain why I liked it. This EP is like really weird and experimental production wise, vocally more singing than rapping, kind of reminiscent of some of the songs off of All My Heroes Are Cornballs, and a little bit veteran. Kind of glitchy on tracks like AI Girlfriend. I think if this EP had a few more songs to really experiment, the reception to it would have been a lot more positive because a lot of the runtime is taken up by the intro track, which is fun, especially the music video, but barely even a song because by the time the build up happens, JPEG doesn't sing or rap or do anything vocally on it. And despite that, I would say the track is really funny, but I don't think it works as well without the music video. Um, I think, regardless of that, it's a pretty chill album, and I'm not really sure why the response to it was so negative. And I think people maybe expected something a little more serious out of this, but guys, like, come on, like, look at the title. It's called "We Live in a Society." But either way, I don't think you can get a fully realized version for a project when the runtime is just so short. I think its length is kind of probably partially why I think a lot of people weren't as positively receptive to it. And then next up, Hiding Places by Billy Woods and Kenny Segal. Awesome production, eerie at times, although not as eerie or scary as his latest album. Some jazzy sort of sounds on here. All the instruments stand out, especially the guitars. I loved it on tracks like SpongeBob. There's one in the middle of the track list. I can't remember the name of real, but yeah, like just on a couple tracks, pretty solid guitars. And as always, Wood's writing's incredible. I have to mention that every video. Just go listen to Billy Woods. This is like this channel might as well just be a Billy Woods advertising channel at this point. Uh, just yeah, that's all I really need to say about it. Go check it out. Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown. This is still really one of the greatest hip hop albums ever. Production insane. So many sample flips that are just so crazy. He was put 70K into debt because of it, I think. Or yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 70K. Uh, Lyrically, Danny talks a lot about drugs and how his self-destructive tendencies are when it comes to using them. And rather than glorifying them and talking about how cool they are, he raps a lot about how they just kind of fucked up his life and just fuck up the people around him. And he kind of just tells it to you how it is and does it all with insane rhyme schemes and wordplay. Ain't It Funny is probably top 10 greatest rap songs ever, and I don't even think that's Glaze. There's just so much going on in that track, from just the insane beat to just the insane like rhyme scheme he holds. He's just rapping like relatively quickly too. It's just so awesome. Danny also just used a ton of different voices. That standard higher pitched one that you probably heard him use before, and he's also got like a lower and slower one he uses on tracks like "Tell Me What I Don't Know," for example. Really Doe might be one of the greatest posse cuts ever, and over the years, my opinion on who has had the best verses changed. At first, when I first listened to it, I thought it was Ab Soul, but then eventually I thought, okay, maybe Danny Brown is the best one, and nowadays I lean towards Earl. In my opinion, this is one of the few handful of songs Kendrick gets out rapped on, but as always, he does not drop a single bad verse. But yeah, this album just got so many bangers on here. When It Rained, Pneumonia, um, Smoke on the Water, Gold Dust. I love that little like bass riff that's got going on in that one. Uh, but yeah, this album just like so good production wise, rapping wise, on all fronts. It's yeah, like honestly, probably one of the best like hip hop albums of all time. I'm still unsure whether or not I think it's perfect. It's definitely close to perfect for sure. Um, I don't know if I could say it's perfect yet. Um, yeah, I don't. Okay, I say yet because but I've been listening to this album for what like 9 years. I don't know if I don't know if there's really any detracting factors I can take away from this. Maybe it's just me being stubborn. Maybe it is perfect album. I don't know. We'll see. Uh, then finally, Adrenaline by Deftones. I think this album has some of Deftones' hardest tracks, but I prefer White Pony and Around the Fur because they have more variety in the type of songs. Like this album's kind of all bangers with no slower stuff, and while that's cool, I like the more low key Deftones songs as well. And this album only has two slower tracks towards the end, and yeah, like that's kind of most of what I have to say. I think the Guitar is pretty solid. I think one thing that's kind of interesting with Deftones is the progression of the guitar tunings, where most of the tracks on Adrenaline are tuned in E standard, and then on Around the Fur, drop C sharp, which is pretty much just tuned a half step down, and then the D note, or the E string, the low E string, is tuned down two more after that, on a whole step in addition, and then it goes to drop C, which compared to this drop C sharp, just a whole, not a whole, a half step down again. So it's like they're slowly slowly getting a little heavier with the sound each time. That's just something that's a little interesting to me as someone who's been picking up guitar lately. Um, but yeah, solid album. Just probably not my favorite of Deftones album. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. Um, I think there might be another one next week. Uh, there's a couple albums I want to talk about. Um, if not, there probably will be a video, right? But I don't know if it's going to be one of these. I might just pick an album and decide to talk about it. An album that I just really like and decide to talk about it. Um, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.